Welcome everyone to Haven of Horror. As always, I am Subject. I'm going to bring Robert in here in a second, and we are going to be watching Gerald's Game, directed by the great Mike Flannagan. Robert, how's it going? Is that so? Yeah. Don't ask why his camera is covered in Vaseline, chat. Nobody wants to know. You bastard. Wow. It's just a commentary. That's true. In fact, let me make sure. Say something. Why isn't... Oh, that's why. Okay, say something again.
Something again.
There we go. Wasn't picking you up for some reason. So we are, as I mentioned, watching Gerald's Game. Robert, what have you been up to this week in the world of horror films?
Watching this and not much else.
So you did get a chance to watch this before?
Yes, this will not be a blind commentary. And I'm glad I did, because this went directions I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. So I have seen this before. However, it has been a minute, and I did not get a chance to rewatch it. So not a blind commentary, more of a I don't remember a lot of this movie commentary.
Okay.
I watched the TV Glows or something today. That new A24 movie.
Yeah, like I saw the TV
I saw the
Glow
TV Glow.
Yeah.
It was very strange, but I think I liked it.
Okay, cool.
Few Buffy references, you always love to see that.
Is it a period piece?
It covers a long span of time.
Gotcha.
Netflix, I don't want you to auto start the movie. Real quick before we get started, I remembered this time we're gonna put on the timer. Where is the timer? Isn't it showing? The hell? Oh, that's why. Okay. No. Been a minute since I've used this timer. I can't remember how it works. Okay, here we go. Watch the chat for me for a minute. I don't think anybody's joined us yet, but that's fine. So we're here to smoke some weed, fill our bellies with diet soda, and play Burnout: The Revenge for the PS2.
Yes.
I blame Austin. He showed me that stupid Star Wars one, and I haven't been able to stop watching it. It's so good.
All of smiling friends. Yeah, all those smiling friends here.
No, it's all good. We're just gonna have to chop off a limb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, are you ready, good sir?
I'm ready.
All right, get your times. Get past all the menus or Netflix bullshit. Get to timestamp 0, and in 3, 2, 1, play. Just watched the newest Doctor Who episode as well, and it was fantastic.
Cool. Glad Doctor Who fans seem to be enjoying it. I hear Twitter isn't enjoying it, but
depends on who cares what Twitter thinks.
I'm not a Doctor Who guy, so can't chime in. This opening shot is great.
Yeah.
Great framing. So the big question I wanted to ask you up front is, have you read this book before?
I have not. I would like to. The only person that I know of that has read it is Austin, and he says this is an improvement on the book.
Interesting.
But I can't place Austin's opinion on King. Sometimes he seems like he likes him, and other times it seems like he doesn't. Which, I mean, that's fair.
Well, there's two types of Stephen King fans. There's the Stephen King fans that like select works, and then if you're a hardcore Stephen King fan, then you read stuff like It, The Stand, etc. But the stuff that isn't widely accessible or is
Yeah,
a lot weirder.
and I am definitely more in the hardcore because I've read it. Although that was a really hard book to get through.
Because yeah, I guess it'll be a mystery to us because I had questions watching this about certain subplots and character revelations of, is this in the book or was this added to the movie? I don't know.
If I'd thought about it, I would have read the book, but
yeah, well, it's just a commentary.
Maybe I'll read it at some point, and then we can answer those questions.
Mm-hmm.
What is this actress's name? Because I keep wanting to call her Gina Carano, but I know that's not right.
Carla Gugino.
Yes.
Mike Flannagan regular.
Yes, she is fantastic in this movie. This is also one of the only movies that I've ever seen to make me like physically squirm. And you know what scene I'm talking about.
God. Yeah. It's not quite a one-woman show, but I mean, like, the cast of this movie is very small, and she is the primary focus.
And all
she is in this
basically Flanagan regulars. The guy Bruce Greenwood.
Mm-hmm.
He is also in House of Usher.
Nice. So you came back for something.
Yes. I just realized I didn't grab a drink, so you're gonna have to cover the fort for a second.
Sure. I've got a drink. I've got a bottle of water. Already down to half of it. So I've had a long day. So this is Carla Gugino and her husband, played by Bruce Greenwood, who is my second favorite Batman voice, first being Kevin Conroy, but Bruce Greenwood has voiced Batman in Under the Red Hood. His first, I think, best performance is Batman, but he's also in Young Justice and the Gotham by Gaslight movie, so he's pretty cool. He's also Captain Pike in the Star Trek reboot from J.J. Abrams.
He's probably my third favorite Batman voice at this point.
Oh, so who would be your second?
Weller.
Weller's good. Yeah.
Batman is tricky because it's like Conroy and then everybody else.
Right. But I love Bruce Greenwood, especially in Under the Red Hood.
He's good.
And Carla Gugino, of course, first thing I probably saw her in was Watchmen as Silk Spectre 1.
Yeah, I think that's the first place I see her that I can remember anyway.
Well, I know she's in Sin City, but I surprisingly have not seen that yet. It's on my watch list.
I've seen sorry. No, I have seen her. I saw her in Sin City first. I just didn't know that was her. I always forget she's in that. I saw that in theaters.
Nice. Wow, you must have been pretty young.
That movie was awesome when you're like...
Yeah.
Well, that's what, 2005? 92 to 2002 was 10. 2002. So I was about 13. You know, the target audience for Sin City.
So this movie has a lot of excellent setup and payoff. Everything we've seen is going to come back into play later.
This is also the perfect Mike Flannagan kind of movie. It's low budget, doesn't need a lot of actors. Not a lot of special effects.
It's also the perfect Netflix movie. And that most Netflix movies suck, but when you get a good one, like, this feels right, because I don't know, you just don't see this. I wouldn't see this doing that well in the theater, but on Netflix, it's like it's perfect.
Okay, I'm gonna correct myself for a second time. I first saw her in Spy Kids, which I also always forget she's in.
That is true. That would also be what I first saw her in. Is she?
She's the mom.
Banderas' wife. Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen Spy Kids in ages, so
I watched this a couple years ago. Maybe it's nostalgia, but those first two held up for me.
Okay.
And then 3 is just funny bad.
Yeah, 3 is weird. I was also kind of outgrowing it by that point. But I remember everyone else hating 2, and I kind of liked 2, but I only saw it a couple times. But the first one I have on VHS, and I watched that movie religiously.
Funny. I had one on DVD, but I had 2 on VHS. And I did not like 2 as much, but I think as I've gotten older, I appreciate it more. I think 2's also been a little bit reevaluated, if not at the very least for like memes, because you got you got Steve Buscemi. I think God lives in fear of what he created.
Yep, I almost quoted that. Okay, I've got a nitpick with the scene. They're about to leave this door wide open. I'm like, come on, close the door. You're just feeding a stray dog.
She noticed, but she was being dragged away by him.
Right, I get the point of the scene. She's concerned, he's not. It shows his arrogance. A tiny tweak I would have made to the scene is I would have had her close it behind her, and then we, the audience, see it doesn't click. Like, the door closes, but it doesn't latch. But having it wide open like that, you just know, like, yep, that dog's coming back. And somebody else, maybe. But, I don't know, you're in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like, close the freaking door. It makes me anxious.
Can I just say how hard it was to make a thumbnail for this movie?
Sure. I don't know if you got the same one I did, but when I went to watch this movie for the first time, you know how Netflix has those weird posters now that change all the time? The one for this movie completely threw me off. I was like, what? And then I watched the movie and I was like, okay, this makes more sense in context. It's still weird. Where it's just the eclipse with a guy with glowing eyes. And it's like, it's accurate, but it's still probably not the movie you're picturing in your head when you see that
poster. I feel like this is a hard movie to sell too, like, because that is the one I have where it's just like the name with an eclipse behind it, where it's like, because the problem of making a thumbnail for this movie is that 90% of the screens are just her handcuffed to the bed in her underwear, and I didn't really want to like make that the thumbnail, but I managed to find one that was at least like from the chest up.
Well, the main Netflix poster, the original poster for this movie, I think is solid. It's just her chained up with Bruce Greenwood on top of her, but it looks ambiguous. Like, you can't tell if he's sleeping or if he's dead. So it's just a simple image that encapsulates the story.
Yeah. I also watched this before I really even knew who Flannagan was. I just threw this on Netflix because it was a Stephen King adaptation.
Yeah, I remember hearing about this when it came out and got good reviews. And I just never got around to it, but I'm glad I finally did.
Honestly, there's a few other King stories that I think you could do as just a Netflix strip movie, like Cujo.
Sure. Yeah,
you just need a dog.
Or like you could for something like Misery, but that's already been made and it's perfect. So
I mean, ones that need to either be adapted or readapted.
Yeah, sure. But I do think, as different as this is in tone, if you like Misery, you'd probably like this movie just because it's that type of disturbing thriller. You know, it's not your traditional, what you think of as a Stephen King horror movie. Because at least when I hear Stephen King, first things I think of are Carrie, It, The Shining. This is different from those. It's a much more serious, grounded thriller. So this seems uncomfortable.
Well, and it's interesting because this is also a more modern King story. This isn't classic King.
Sure.
In fact, this novel came out. Well, okay. Let me correct myself. It is not modern, but it's not classic King either. This is 92.
Sure. Yeah. The classics you think of are from the 70s
and 80s. 70s and 80s, yeah.
So right now we're in the chained up role play scene. Some people are into this. Doesn't do it for me. Just gonna say it. Not working for me. I don't like this situation. I don't like the way. I don't like any of this. I don't like any of this.
I mean, yeah, they picked the right actress for this role, is all I'll say.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love her, and yeah, it's funny that now it's like the main thing I think of her in is Watchmen, and now it's like, oh, now here's all these Mike Flannagan projects with her.
See, and I had that for a while, but I think at this point, Haunting of Hill House has replaced that.
Sure.
Because even in
It is
Watchmen, she's in old woman makeup for like 2/3 of that movie.
for a lot of for sure. But then watching back to back Haunting a Hill House and then this is really awkward because I know this was made first, but when you see some of the recurring actors in the different roles they are, it's like it's weird.
Yeah,
I don't like the way.
I go back and forth on using actors like that. It doesn't bother me a lot of the times, like when I'm watching House of Usher and I see like, his wife, I'm not thinking of her Hill House character. But
Sure.
then I see like the kid from ET and I'm like, all I can see is the dad from Hill House.
Mhm.
And now I just got uncomfortable.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and this is really important. Him trying to get her to call him daddy, and like that really makes her not freak out, but get angry. And we will see why later. Why that is a trigger for her.
Yeah, she.
But then when you see like Henry Thomas and Flanagan's wife, like playing husband and wife, when I just saw them as father and daughter in another show, it's like it's weird. It's like when you see two actors play siblings in something, and then they're a couple in another movie. It's
Godzilla
really
and Avengers
distracting.
Age of
Yes.
Ultron.
That's the example I was thinking of. It's really awkward.
That one's worse because didn't they come out the same year?
Just a year apart.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm. Godzilla's 2014, Age of Ultron's 2015.
Okay. It's interesting this is called Gerald's Game, given what's about to happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is one of a handful of both King stories and Flanagan stories that touch on like the seedy, dark side of sexuality and like what's the real person and what's just pretend or situational, just really uncomfortable adult stuff. I feel like at least with the Flanagan projects I've seen, it's like, well, at least the family in Oculus was fine. It's the mirror's fault for why that went bad. But I think that was a good relationship before.
I mean, yeah. If there is a byline through his work, it's corruption of the family through evil as a metaphor for a real life. Because even in Oculus, it's just mental health is the like the metaphor.
But another movie this reminded me of a little bit, just with some of the subject matter. Have you ever seen or read Dolores Claiborne?
I think I started the book, but I never finished it.
It's one that always gets lost in the shuffle, or I always forget to bring up when we talk about good King adaptations, because that movie is great. It's just really underappreciated or underseen because
That's
it
the
doesn't.
woman from Misery, right?
Yes, Kathy Bates. It came out a few years after Misery, and it doesn't get brought up a lot because it doesn't have the prestige grandness that like Shawshank or Green Mile have. But it's also not just a Stephen King horror movie. Like it's just a drama. It's just a character study. But there's really dark, grounded stuff in it, and it goes to some disturbing places. It's just a really sad movie, but very well acted, very good. As far as good King movies go, that one ranks really high. Very underappreciated.
And there's the original poster.
Yep.
No, but what really freaks me out with this movie is just the idea of like this has got to have happened before, right?
Yes. This sucks. Everything about this situation sucks. And it makes you wonder what was King's headspace when he came up with this idea.
I mean, I have that question for a lot of the books that I've read from him.
But it's like, okay, evil clown, got it. Psychic girl, got it. And then he comes up with a situation like this that is so messed up and specific. It's like, oh god.
That's what coming off of drugs will do to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I forgot that the floor here was tiles, so when he hits that I don't know, like he's done.
He's done for sure. She is such a good actress. I'd argue
She is
really
great.
underappreciated in
Mhm.
most times.
I think you could say that about a lot of Flanagan regulars, which is probably why he keeps bringing them back. Like Henry Thomas, I remember before I started watching a lot of this stuff, he had a small voice role in season 1 of Stargirl, but then he was replaced later. So I don't know if like there were just scheduling conflicts. But at the time, it was like a novelty. Like, oh, cool, the kid from ET's like a voice in Stargirl. That's awesome. And now it's like, oh, here's all this other awesome stuff he's been like. He's a legit actor. Like he's really good, and here's
If
all
you
this great stuff he's in, and he's not an actor people talk about.
you'd asked me 10 years ago, out of the 3 kids in ET, who would be the one with the best career, I would have laughed if you'd said anybody but Drew Barrymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's
And
like a TV show host, talk show host.
yeah, which is fine. She can do whatever she wants.
Yeah, it's whatever.
Like I mean, she's
She
been in
peaked with
plenty of
Santa
good
Clarita
stuff.
Diet.
Well, and of course, I've not seen her Firestarter, which I know is divisive.
I do need to see that. I saw the new one. Wish I hadn't.
That one. Why wouldn't you give that to Flanagan? If anything, should be a Netflix movie.
I mean,
Flanagan.
I don't.
That one.
I hope this doesn't sound hyperbolic, but just give him all of the King adaptations.
Sure.
I've said since we started this, if there is anyone who understands the story principles of King and how to apply them to film more than any other director, it's Flanagan. Mm-hmm. Darabont gets close, but I don't know if I don't know how he would handle The Shining. Like he can do like the Green Mile and Shawshank. Wait, did he do the Green?
Yes.
Okay. That made me sad, man. Just thinking about it makes me sad.
It's a bummer. But obviously Flanagan would have been perfect for it. That's a different story because I had a long, complicated production, and that was like during early Flanagan stuff. But post this in Dr. Sleep, it's like, yeah, just give Flanagan all the King stuff. Like he's the guy.
I'm so sad we'll probably never see Flanagan's Pet Sematary.
Yeah, that Firestarter. It's like, what? Just give these to Flanagan.
You know how fucking good Flanagan's Pet Sematary would be?
Probably great.
The only good adaptation we have that is the 80s, and it's not perfect. It's just kind of the book dumped on the screen, which I can appreciate as a fan of the book, but I understand it's not a great film. Mm-hmm. The 2019 remake is embarrassing. Mm. See, this is where I just give up. Just like, somebody shoot me or something.
And then, like, because she left the freaking door open, the dog's gonna come in. The dog's in this movie a lot more than I expected, though. I thought it would just be a one-scene situation, but no, it's a problem. Start to finish. And this is why you don't feed stray dogs.
Yep. Growing up, my grandma would always like try to keep me away from animals. That's we were like going on a walk or something, and somebody had a dog or a cat, and she had me convinced that any random cat could just give me cat scratch fever. So I still sometimes, if it's a dog I don't know, I still flinch because of that, or a cat or whatever. More so a dog. Like cats will hurt, but dogs are the ones that can do some real fucking damage.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We also had a little. I think maybe it's coming up, but there is a Cujo reference. Maybe that hasn't happened yet.
Cujo, the one story he doesn't remember writing.
Wow.
Do you not know about that?
Oh yeah. I know. It's just like heavy. But yeah, as far as crazy coked out King goes, it's like Maximum Overdrive and Sleepwalkers. Like that's.
I still gotta see Maximum Overdrive.
And this situation is just so much more horrifying. It's bad enough that your spouse is laying there dead, but now an animal is in there chewing on his corpse. Like, I mean, it's like she gets close to throwing up because this is so messed up. And God,
Yeah, and it's never like over the Midnight Mass.
Midnight Mass.
And it's never goofy or over the top. This is like gritty and real.
Mm. Yeah, we'll get into the ending later, but which I have mixed feelings on, but I don't know what I'd change. But what I appreciate is this movie teases that it's gonna have a supernatural edge to it, and I'm really glad it doesn't go there. Um, so I appreciate that because a lot of this movie is kind of vague with what's real or if there is something more supernatural going on. But I prefer it when it's grittier. This is the type of story I think works better, more gritty and real. And now the hallucinations have started. And Bruce Greenwood's in this movie a lot more than I expected because I thought, oh, he'll probably die early and then maybe get a couple flashbacks. No, he's in this movie a lot, just as a ghost, kind of.
Bulky Ghost.
They should make a hidden ghosts compilation like people do for Hill House, but it's just his scenes over and over again. Did you see the hidden ghost?
As much as I love his Netflix shows, I really do hope that his announcement of doing The Life of Chuck and now an Exorcist movie, that means that he's back to doing his feature-length films.
Yep.
He hasn't made a movie since Doctor Sleep. I'm like 90% sure.
Oh, that's probably correct. But yeah, here we're getting our first kind of insight into, or more insight into their marriage and the type of guy he is. Because this is the first time that question's posed. Like, do you just tell a tasteless joke that one time, or like, is that just who he is? Like, just all? Is this just how he thinks of women? You know, like this is a very sexist character.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I know about the book is that apparently it goes even further with the like feminist thing.
Mm.
I don't know what that means, but that's just what Austin told me.
Yeah, King can be hit or miss. I've heard when he tries to get into more serious issues.
Yeah, and I mean, so King's biggest issue is that he can ramble.
Sure.
It is a really hard book to read, the book It, because there's just entire like art chapters that is news articles about all this bad shit that's happened in Derry. And I'm like, dude, cut all of this. Derry bad, I get it. Although honestly, if I had edited it, I would have also gotten rid of the adult stuff and just made it a book about the kids fighting Pennywise, because that is the best stuff in that book. That's why I wasn't disappointed by It Chapter 2, because the stuff in the book isn't great either.
Well, and like I said, it's like Flanagan took that structure and just improved upon it with Haunting of Hill House. Like he just uses that concept a lot better of the kids and adult versions of the same character jumping back and forth in time.
Yeah.
But since you brought up the feminism stuff that's in the book, like so I don't know how it compares, but I feel like if this movie came out today, there you'd see a bunch of rage bait videos for it, like this movie hates men, all the men in this movie are monsters and I can't relate or be inspired by anyone. Therefore, this movie hates me. It's like, shut up. I just care about the story. Like, I don't care. Because I've seen that criticism on a lot of recent movies. I find weird, like, there's not one positive male role model in this movie. Like, I don't I don't care. Like, I just care if the characters are well written. And it's like, yeah, that's just what the movie's about. It's about these horrible men in this woman's life and how they've affected her and if she can or can't overcome that and move on by the end. It's like that's just what the story is, but I'm not bummed that I can't relate or look up to any male character this week. Like this movie about a few very specific people. And I think it works. And she's great, you know.
There's the Cujo reference.
Yeah.
God, he's still eating that piece of meat.
Oh god. This dog, man, it's like, dude, you just got a $200 steak. You've had a good day. Just go somewhere else.
Oh God, I'm cringing just thinking what's going to come later.
Oh yeah. Now I don't know if this is just a made-up TV movie thing. I've just seen a trope before where if you break your thumbs, you can potentially slip your hand out of handcuffs. But I think you need your hands like to be able to touch each other to do that. Like if your hands are tied behind your back. But nope, she's just up like this.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Jesus
every
pose
time
the
I've
whole
seen
movie,
that trope, it is possible, but there'd have to be more given those cuffs, and she'd have to be able to have like her hands together.
Yeah. So yeah, this situation sucks. And I actually don't know a lot about King's personal life. Do you know if he's been divorced? Has he been
As far as
like
I'm
I?
aware, he is not,
Okay, that's
because
interesting.
his
Just
wife
because.
is an author as well, and she actually helped him write Carrie.
Interesting. Wow, and that's way back.
Because
That's
he
something
was
smart.
gonna, because he was gonna throw that story in the trash because he didn't think he could write a woman properly, and she was like,
Hmm.
"No, here," and like helped him make Carrie a more believable.
That's great.
Which is funny because some of the ways he describes Carrie in that book, almost like he hates Carrie more than the kids bullying her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and if
no,
they're
he's
still
been
married,
married to
that's awesome.
Tabitha Spruce since 1971.
That's impressive. Congratulations. It's just interesting because this is one of those stories where a marriage is a marriage with problems is at the forefront.
Well, and I mean, I'm sure, like, I don't want to assume for the man, but you're married that long, you're gonna have some troubles.
Yeah.
But I just want to know who bullied Stephen King, because Stephen King bullies are a trope as they should be. They're always insane.
Yeah, and that's a trope I'm ready to get phased out. We've seen it enough. Like I don't know how many switchblade wielding
I don't know. There's something really
bullies
funny
exist
about the
anymore.
bully going from wanting to just like annoy the fat kid in it to I'm going to carve my initials into his stomach. That is psychopath behavior. As someone who has tried to grab his phone with his feet, that never works.
And granted, I don't think you'd really. I think you'd just be more concerned with dying. But it would suck thinking about like I'm gonna die and this is how people are going to find me. This is how people are gonna know what my final moments were. And man, that sucks. It is so horrifying. Because, like I said, it reminds you of Misery a little bit, where your protagonist is confined to a bed for a lot of it, except there's a more direct tormentor. You know, it's a captive story. Now, do you think enough time passes before she starts having these hallucinations?
Um, it works for the length of this movie and like for pacing. I think it's a little silly that it happened maybe 2 minutes in, but
I
I'm
agree.
willing to give it that.
Granted, I've never been in a situation where I'm tied up, my significant other has just died in front of me, and now a dog is eating their corpse. So maybe that's enough trauma
And
to
from what I
make your brain
remember, because it's
snap.
been a couple of years, we are going to find out that she is messed up like beyond just.
Yes.
No, but the husband's like just philosophy is so interesting. Like they're talking here, he couldn't even get it up until he had like full control over her. He doesn't want a
Yes.
relationship. He wants control.
Oh yeah. He has that dark side, and we see what gets him off, and it's really gross and dark. But also, like, this isn't the most three-dimensional developed character. Like, everything we get is of him is from her perspective. But like, you get enough. Like, it works.
Well, yeah,
Um,
because I mean, just that also lines up with the really awkward sex scene earlier.
yeah, exactly. Like, we know what he's into, and it's not fun.
Are you bored by the monologues?
Flanagan likes to write monologues.
I just can't believe that we live in a time where having monologues is a bad thing.
Yep. There's too much talking in this grown-up movie. Where's the jump scares?
That's like, so I have this with a lot of mediums. Nothing drives me crazier than when I'm like listening to a song. Somebody be like, "Well, where's the lyrics?" It's music.
Yep.
If you want lyrics, go read poetry.
I agree.
Hopefully, Mike Flanagan gets the rights to this next.
Yeah, I hope this gets a physical release.
Although it might not, because I think the difference with Hush is that was never labeled as a Netflix movie,
Mm, good point.
whereas this it clearly is.
Hmm. But still, I'm sure there's whether it's like, even if it's 20 years, I'm sure there's
Oh,
a your camera and your
I'm
back.
sure
But
he's fighting for it because he said multiple
yeah.
times that like he wants physical releases for all of it. And I'm not
Well,
normally a like I have to have a physical release because I don't have enough room to buy everything that I want physically. But if I would even be satisfied if Netflix would just put some of this stuff on Vudu where I could buy it. So like if I
sure.
don't have Netflix, I can still watch it. I know
That's
why
like,
they won't, but
to me, that's the ideal. That's what streaming should be. This is exclusive to watch for free, but here you also have another option elsewhere. You just have to pay for it. That's a good compromise. Like, that's where you, and as you've seen over and over again, they make a lot of money is made from streaming. Like, if people want a movie, they'll pay $20 for it.
well, you know what? I might be wrong because Net even this movie was technically like produced by a different production company and just distributed by Netflix.
Interesting.
So maybe one day.
Well, even Netflix originals, like, nothing's indefinite. Like there's always a limit. Like this will be an original for 10 years or 20 years or 30, like something. There
Funnily
is
enough,
somewhere
Hush is a
it's
Blumhouse movie.
interesting. But granted, I've never been in this situation. This is not when she's like turning the shelf to get the water. I'm like, oh god, because this water saves your life. Um, but she is obviously a very fit woman. I would think you'd try to grab that maybe with your feet first, but maybe you can't. She can't physically do that.
I don't know if anybody. It'd be a little strange if she was suddenly a contortionist.
Like I wouldn't know, but when she's turning that shelf and it's sliding down, I'm like, that's a really anxious scene. Like, God, don't spill that water.
Oh, there is a movie of his I haven't seen yet. Before I Wake.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about that one. It's also like one of his lesser reviewed ones. I think it just got mixed reviews, but it might have a cult following. Like it might have had reappraisal. I don't know, but it's definitely like the least well regarded of his movies.
Well,
But I should
I
still check
just
it out.
looking at his filmography. Like I liked Oculus a lot, but it also feels like I said like a prototype. I don't think he really hits his stride until probably a Ouija, because that Ouija movie's pretty good, and then he does this right after, and then it's a Ouija, Gerald's Game, Doctor Sleep, The Haunting of Hill House, just like banger, banger, banger.
And this is really clever, turning a tag into a straw. I wouldn't have thought of this. I would die. I love movies where you just have a character confined in a situation like this, and you just have all these pieces, all these things in a room they have to work with, and all the clever things you can do with them. Have you seen 10 Cloverfield Lane?
Yes, I think we reviewed that actually.
Nice.
I enjoyed it. I was surprised because I do not like the first one.
Interesting. Yeah, well, they're very different movies.
It gives me a headache.
Yeah,
rather, it did the one time that I saw it in theaters.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's fair. No, I like that movie, but 10 Cloverfield Lane's great, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead's awesome in that movie. And I remember people complaining at the time, like, oh, she's too smart. She does things that are too clever, because I wouldn't have thought of that. I'm like, I don't care. I just care if the character's interesting, or if I'm rooting for the character. Like, I don't consider myself that smart. My bar isn't this character better be as smart as I am.
So I have this whole thing with people in horror movies, because the trope is always like, why do they always run and trip? I wouldn't do that.
Right, that's stupid.
People overestimate how they would act in a situation.
Yes.
Because I guarantee you, in a slasher movie, if a guy in a hockey mask with a machete is coming after you, you're the one that trips.
Yep.
In 10 Cloverfield Lane, you either are going to figure that out or die.
Yep. Yeah, I'm really curious how like these hallucinations and stuff play out in the book, because the book I know was well reviewed but had a reputation of being unfilmable. Like I don't know if this had like a 20-year development hell history of different directors trying to make this work and dropping out. Like, yeah, like I don't know. I just that's just a thing I read, was the book was considered by some unfilmable. So I don't know what history the movie has before we get to the Flannagan, what we have here, but he makes it work.
That is interesting. I hadn't heard that, and Wikipedia doesn't mention anything about it.
But like I said, that's just one thing I read.
But like I said, I also didn't realize this book is as old as it is. I always, for some reason, thought this was like an early 2000s King book.
Is early 2000s when you get like Dreamcatcher and stuff.
Let's see.
Or, like some of his lesser.
I know the 2000s are rough. I've read a couple of his newest books that were pretty good. Well, I say newest, that's been a couple years, but he wrote a
Like
book
Dark
called The
Slave?
Institute. That was pretty good. It's kind of X-Men-y. Doctor Sleep, yeah, that book's pretty good. That is one where I do prefer the film version. Let's see. So like in the 2000s, so he the 2000s, just looking at this, I would describe as inconsistent more than anything, because he's still finishing up the Dark Tower series, which is very good. But then you also get stuff like Blaze and Duma King or Duma Key and Under the Dome. That is the first book I think of when people complain about Stephen King's endings, because that ending sucks.
Mm.
Do you know anything about Dome?
I remember my mom watched the show, but I think she dropped off, and I don't know how.
I forgot they made a show.
I think it was canceled after like 2 seasons, but I don't remember if they got to do an ending or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I watched like the first episode. So the entire premise, which is really cool, it's just like a dome shows up around a town, right? And it's like, how do these people live in, when their town is? The ending is that aliens dropped the dome and they get out of it by pleading with the aliens for their life.
Oh, no.
This book is 1,000 pages. At least from what I remember. That was a long time ago that I read it, but...
So this is creepy.
No, this is very creepy. He's good at that creep factor. Like, it's genuinely scary, not, oh, it startled me.
Yeah, I finally watched a video on Hill House, like, pointing out all the secret ghosts. And I saw some of them, but there are some where when you notice them, you're like, oh god, that's horrifying. I would have been so scared if I saw that.
So I'm looking at the ranking of the movies and TV shows I've seen of Flannagan. So far, Hush is probably my least favorite. I think that's just because it's not as thematically rich as his other stuff. That's just a very simple, it's a slasher movie from what I remember.
Yeah, it's a slasher home invasion. It's a slasher home invasion thriller.
But I do need to rewatch it.
I remember really liking it, but I haven't seen it in a while.
I mean, even his worst movie on my list, what I would rather watch than 90% of the horror stuff that's coming out today. I still gotta watch Challengers. That's not a horror movie, but I went to rent that today, and then I saw I saw the TV Glows available. I should watch that instead to keep on 2024 horror films. A24, you didn't let me down.
But yeah, this movie though, it did come out in kind of that sweet spot area where I think when you think of Stephen King adaptations, you probably primarily think of the 80s, even though there were plenty of good ones in the 70s and 90s. But there was like a 2015 to 2019 period where we were getting a lot of Stephen King adaptations. I felt like they were kind of making resurgence, and some of which, like this, were quite good. And that's kind of died down the last couple of years.
No, I was really excited because I think that really starts in 2017 because you get the first It and this. Yeah. And I was like, and I hadn't seen this yet, but walking out of it, I was like, okay, let's keep this ball rolling, like get some more, King adaptations, because there's a lot of his stuff that hasn't been adapted, and there's a lot of his stuff that I think you could readapt and get away with it by making it closer to the book. And then 2019 kind of ruined it. Dr. Sleep bombed. It Chapter 2 is not very good.
And then last year you get what? Pet Cemetery Bloodlines.
Which I find that hard to call that an adaptation.
Yeah, sure.
Which that movie was really bad.
Oh god. But we also got the Children of the Corn that year. I haven't seen Pet Cemetery, but I don't know which one of those is worse, but Children of the Corn, the new one's pretty bad. Dude. Before that we got Firestarter.
Yeah, no. It peaks like in 2017 and then it stays kind of on the same level till 2019 and then it just goes off a fucking cliff.
Is there another King movie?
There he is.
There's Henry Thomas. Is there another King movie that Flanagan does for Netflix that I keep forgetting about?
Not Flannagan, but there is another King movie.
Okay.
It's let me make sure that it's him, because there's 2 movies on Netflix, and one of them is a King adaptation and one's not, and I can't ever remember which one it is. Yes, In the Tall Grass.
Okay, yes, that's.
And it is based on Stephen King and Joe Hill's novella.
Nice. Did you see that? Was it good?
It was the movie. Oh,
okay.
Sorry. Both of the movies that I'm thinking of are King adaptations. But real quick, In the Tall Grass is good, but it's very weird, so you have to be okay with weird, because it's about a time-traveling cornfield. The other one is 1922, starring Thomas Jane, which is very good. That's like this, where it's more of just a down, gritty thriller, but a lot more depressing.
Oh, okay.
A guy does something bad and spends the next hour and a half paying for it. But it's Thomas Jane, so he's really good at it.
Is that Apple TV Western show? Is that also called 1922, or is that 1923 or something?
Apple Western TV show.
Yeah, they got a bunch of those. But I think it's the one that Harrison Ford and
The Cowboy?
No, I don't remember which one Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren are in. But yeah, there's one that's called 1920 something. So get confused by similar titles.
I googled Harrison Ford and Apple TV and got Shrinking.
Yeah, that is also a show you did. I've heard that's very good. I'm gonna search.
Henry Thomas looks like such a scumbag in this movie.
Yes. Okay, I was thinking of 1923. But I don't know if you had this, but watching this, I get why Flanagan casts Henry Thomas as Jack in Doctor Sleep. This is the role where I'm like, oh, I get it. Because that seems like such random casting, but he's great.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see it just from what I remember about this movie. And honestly, I don't know how people felt about that, but if he had remade The Shining, I wouldn't have been upset with Henry Thomas as Jack in a full The Shining film.
He could have done it.
I don't need that now because I got the important part of The Shining remade in Doctor Sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
But I wouldn't complain.
So, yeah, this shot we just saw is great. The way everything's centered with the sun. And, like, it looks artificial, but in a good way. Like, it looks really old school, the way they shoot the eclipse stuff. Where it's like, yeah, it looks fake, but it's fine because it's a memory. It's a hallucination. Like, it gives you a lot of leeway.
It's how she remembers it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I like a good unreliable narrator when it's done well. My problem with unreliable narrator is a lot of people just use that to cheat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at first I was trying to place like what year this flashback's in because I'm like, okay, how old was Carla Gugino in this movie? And I think this is 80s. And then you see Flanagan's wife in her big 80s hair. You're like, yep, 80s. It's just funny because she looks so different from how she looked in.
I didn't even recognize her in the brief bit that we saw. I was also talking about her, but
But God, this scene is so uncomfortable. This is there are 2 scenes in this movie that are extremely hard to watch. This is one of them.
So I'm having that too. I don't even remember the full extent of what happens with him, but like it's just raising a red flag for me. Like something is.
And the way the lighting shifts with the eclipse is so clever. Where now everything's just red and scary.
And something with his hair. Like his hair just makes him look untrustworthy.
Yes.
Oh God.
yeah, this situation is so uncomfortable and disturbing. And it's like, oh, so we're because the movie starts with Carla Gugino's husband and his dark side and the seedy side of sexuality. It's like, oh, so we're gonna keep that theme going, okay, and it's gonna go farther. All right, that's what I'm in for. This is a great movie without much replay value. But that shot's great with them with the eclipse. Like it's so creepy and it looks very 80s in a good way. But God, this stuff is so
I have all the respect in the world for Henry Thomas to be able to do this. I would not be able to do that as an actor. No,
I am shocked. I am shocked he kept working with Flannagan. You want me to do what? Like,
oh,
God,
that
so
shot of
disturbing.
him in the red is just beautiful.
I mean, it's implied. It's not super explicit, but you see enough, and it's so disturbing.
As an actor, the sitting on the lap would be like, nope,
nope. And she might not have been. There might have been like a bench, like something that separated them. Like God, this must have been a nightmare.
No, actually, I take it back. Right there is where I would have been. Nope.
Nope. CGI it. Use AI. It's fine. Do it in post.
I'm not humping her.
God, it sucks. And but then we shift to like one of the more real scenes in the movie, because I was thinking about this early on, like, when are the cramps gonna set in? Like, and this is where she kind of starts to freak out because her body is in so much pain for being held by these handcuffs for so long. It's like, yep, we're back to gritty realism, and it sucks.
Also, just kudos for like letting her look like crap.
Yeah,
like she actually looks like she has been through the ringer.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get some movies where it's like, oh, they've been shot at and explosions, and they probably hasn't showered in a week, but their hair looks like it just came out of the hair dryer or hairstylist.
They still got shiny, pearly white teeth.
Yeah. The Walking Dead is a big offender of that.
Sure. I think they do enough with dirt and sweat and stuff, but yeah, like, who's putting on makeup and combing their hair in situations? This is also when they make her self-made straw from the tag look gross. Like, it's all soggy now. It's like, oh, that water's got to taste disgusting, but she has to drink it.
Fly.
And then the flies come in, and you think about the smell, and you're like, ah. The setup also reminds me of a movie that came out a couple years ago that I still need to watch. I think it's called Till Death Do Us Part, but it sounded really cool. I don't know, like a horror thriller movie. But it was, I think it's Megan Fox, and I've heard one of her better performances, but where she plays a character whose boyfriend or husband handcuffs himself to her, and then he shoots himself in front of her. So he commits suicide in front of her, and then forces her to be handcuffed to his body, and then she has to figure out how to survive and escape. Like, that's a really cool setup that I wouldn't be surprised if that was inspired by this. But I still need to check that movie out.
So I did find a movie called Till Death Do Us Part. Megan Fox is not in it.
Okay, the title.
That would explain, though, why every time I would look up Gerald's Game to try to find like an image for the thumbnail, a picture of a bloody Megan Fox would show up.
Okay, that makes sense.
Let me see what she's done recently. I think Megan Fox could be a good actress. She just has to pick the right projects, but she never does.
Yeah, she has to.
Till Death, I bet you is what it is.
Till Death. Okay. Yeah, I still need to check it out, but it's a cool setup.
You were close.
Yeah. But like, you go back to the first Transformers movie, and I know nostalgia is a big part of it, and if you ignore some of the writing and directing, like, I think she's fine in that movie.
She is like, a perfectly fine sex object. I mean, let's be honest, that's what she is in that movie.
Yeah, like, well, we know what Michael Bay thinks of her.
I'm still baffled that she came back for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That whole situation,
which might be the worst casting in that movie.
Yeah, but also it's like if it's like the fifth or sixth problem with that movie, like, so I can't even rag on her too much for that. It's not like if you cast that character better, then the movie's perfect. Like, oh.
Well, you know, all we got to do is take all their blood, even if it kills them. Stupid script.
If they bleed, we can.
I want to see the person that wrote that line being like really proud of themselves. Like, yeah, that's such a badass line. I like nailed it. No, that's stupid.
Also, what's interesting with this situation with her and her husband is the fact that she never told him what about this traumatic childhood moment. Where it again, that just gives you even more insight into their relationship. Like, these people are married, and she still didn't trust him enough to confide in him, like, this horrible thing that happened to her. Not saying that everyone does, or like that you're obligated to, but generally speaking, if you love and trust someone to marry them, you'd think like that's something you would
Well,
potentially
and
share
he
with
brings
them.
that up as like, isn't that what marriage is? And she's like, not that. Like, of all things, not that.
Hmm.
I bet she wishes she had some diet soda and burn out revenge for the PS2 right about now.
Oh, that clip is so good.
We caught up with season. I caught up with season 2 with Austin a couple weeks ago. And it's pretty good.
I'm still not
That's the
caught up
best
on a
episode,
couple
though.
of
Like, hands down, that is the
that.
best episode of season 2.
Yeah, that's the Alan episode, right? The Alan adventure.
Yes.
I love Alan.
Yeah, because it's all plot by his landlord to get him to smoke some weed, drink some Diet Cola, and play Burnout Revenge.
PS2.
And just the way he says PS2. PS2. Yeah, you really get. If you like Bruce Greenwood, you got to watch House of Usher.
Can't wait. Yeah, I'm all in on these Flanagan shows. Finally, the one I'm probably gonna put off is Midnight Club, which I've heard is okay, but A, it's at the bottom of my list, and B, it was canceled. It was supposed to get a season 2, but isn't. So it's like, well, there's another canceled Netflix show that we're not gonna
I
bother
probably will never
getting
watch that unless
invested
we end
in.
up doing it on the channel. I watched like the first episode and it was fine.
I know Heather Langenkamp's in it, but Flanagan's bringing her back in his movie, I think,
The Life of
or in another
Chuck.
show. So glad he's still working with her.
Yeah, she's coming back for The Life of Chuck.
Yeah, the movie's got a big cast.
That's another King adaptation.
Yeah. So this subplot's interesting with this mysterious guy who was in the room with them, and the hallucination of her husband says like, "Oh, it's death. Death is coming for you," and that's how she's internalizing it or interpreting it. And I was a little nervous, like, oh, I hope we don't go too literal with that. I hope we don't go too supernatural, and we don't. Because another question you have is, okay, if that's a hallucination, that's a really specific hallucination. So I hope they explain that, and they do. Are we at a point now that we? Oh, go on.
No, go ahead.
Like, can this just be like filed under like top 5 Flanagan tropes of just character played by both adult and child? And because it's a trope he seems to like, and he makes it work, so I'm cool with it. Like, I'd be shocked if it wasn't a big inspiration for him, especially on Hill House, just with the way that's structured.
God, he would make a perfect It movie or a miniseries. If you ever do that again, it needs to be a miniseries, I think. Because if you do it again, I want everything. I want the turtle. I want the author, Stephen King's coked out fantasies. Do you know about that?
Yeah, there's another scene I hope you don't want that can stay out.
No, that you can.
Yeah, there's one scene that's in none of the adaptations for good reason. Keep that one
No,
out.
but do you know about the turtle?
Yes, I know about the turtle. And it's hilarious to think of this story in that universe because all the stories are connected. Meanwhile, well, Carla Gugino's tied to this bed. There's a giant turtle that the universe is resting on because it's all connected.
And it's fighting a giant clown.
And I think this is one of the more disturbing and heartbreaking scenes in the movie. Like, just the chess her horrible father is playing, the way he's manipulating her. This is the scene where I was like, I get why he cast Henry Thomas as Jack. Because this is so manipulative and dark and twisted and sad and messed up and horrifying.
So, because when we were talking, what is it that he's saying they have to tell us the mom? Is it about the eclipse thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So he's saying, like, we should tell her, but, you know, she might blame you for what happened because, you know, her and her mom have kind of a strained relationship. So he manipulates her into saying, no, we should keep this a secret, which is going to haunt her. And it, like I said, just very messed up. And again, everything we learn about her father
The
is from her
editing,
perspective.
it's so good right here.
And I mean, we don't know. Like, we don't know what her father was like before this. But we don't really need to. Like, because what he does is pretty horrible. And as she says later, like, oh God, he's probably going to do this again. Like, he's a terrible guy. And it's really sad watching this after Hill House. I'm like, no, I liked you when you were a good dad on that show. I don't like seeing Henry Thomas as a creepy dad.
I need Kate Siegel to come back with the 80s hair so I can see it.
Yeah, you'll see it because I was like, whoa, that's not how her hair usually looks. Yeah, there's going to be another scene with her coming up.
Oh, he said the thing.
He said, now, okay, was that, do you think, a deliberate Shining reference?
It's all over that book.
Okay.
Because so in the book, The Shining, the only thing that you have that's a sense that something is wrong up until the end is Danny through The Shining keeps getting messages of somebody saying, take your medicine, it's time to take your medicine. But he doesn't realize until it's already happening that he was hearing his father when he's been taken by the hotel. And with the Cujo reference earlier, that has got to be intentional.
Yeah, for sure. This must have been such a difficult shoot. Like, it must have sucked making this movie, but I'm glad they did because
it's very good.
And obviously, this movie is a very specific situation. I still think some people think a little too lightly, or what's the word? Like, oh, acting's easy. You just show up and say your lines and you go home. And I'm not saying celebrities should be paid like dozens of billions of dollars for acting roles or whatever, but like, acting's not easy. it takes talent, it takes a lot of work, and then you get movies like this, like, oh god, like this must have sucked making this. Like it's not.
I think
It
that
can be hard
Hollywood
work.
budgets are too much because we do pay actors
Yes.
too much sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't typically see that in a lower budget film like this.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
That's mostly, the big Marvel esque blockbusters where it's like, did Robert Downey Jr. really need like half the movie's budget?
No, of course not. And I love Robert Downey Jr., but we can start to chip that down.
Oh, she's in the same position.
Great shot. Get this shot.
Oh, God.
God.
I've
One of
been
the creepiest shots of the movie.
I didn't know. I forgot about that. I got time to take a drink.
Why didn't you make that the thumbnail?
I almost. Yeah, is this from the movie? Wait, what?
That should have been the Netflix poster. You pull up Netflix.
He's still eating.
Oh god, that dog pisses me off. He's ungrateful.
I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but all animals are ungrateful.
But it does add a ticking clock element, though, where it's not just, oh, she's gonna die of exhaustion or dehydration. It's like, no, that body on the ground is gonna get cold, and the dog's gonna want something more fresh. And
you're not going to be able to fight it off forever.
Yeah. So that's just a great extra ticking clock the situation has.
Yeah, to be honest, you said it earlier, but this is not a movie that I ever thought to go back to until we did this commentary.
Right. This is I know a couple people I'd recommend this to that I'd watch it with them if the situation presented itself, but on my own, it's like I want to own a copy of it just to have it, but yeah, it's not something I'd revisit much.
People seem to hate the ending just looking at letterbox reviews.
Interesting. I know it got good reviews when it came out.
Every review I'm seeing is this was really good until the last 10 minutes.
I wouldn't say I have that, but I do have mixed feelings on it, but I don't know what I'd change either. And again, I don't know how it compares to the book. But it does it's the type of epilogue where I don't know if it's too short or too long, because it just kind of becomes a different movie. So I don't know what I'd change about it. But something feels up, but we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, because I legitimately don't remember.
And she's still thinking about, like, oh god, this is how I'm gonna be found. And that's really dark and messed up too, the way people might think of it or spin it. like, oh, this poor successful man died of a heart attack, and his wife died in such an embarrassing, compromised position. Just the double standard, like that, really sucks. Considering as a possibility, because to the rest of the world, he's a really successful, great guy, but we have more insight into what he's really like, through
Yeah.
her perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I also, speaking of movies that I watched, just because we're in a kind of a lull, not a lull, but I don't have anything really to say about this thing. I finally watched Beneath. I finally watched Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, interesting. What did you think of it?
It was not good, but I kind of loved the last act.
It's insane.
My review on Letterboxd is just, you maniacs! You blew it all up!
What an insane ending.
It's wonderful.
Tell me a darker sequel ending than that.
I don't know about sequel,
God.
but I can name a darker movie ending.
Sure, but a sequel hits different, where it's, here's all these characters you know and love, and this is what happens to them.
Funnily enough, I think the movie with the darkest ending. Okay, so there's two that I consider the darkest endings I've ever seen. The Mist is the obvious one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
But the one that nobody talks about is Return of the Living Dead.
I haven't seen it. We'll get to it.
Yes, we will. We should just do because our next thing should be a zombie like this, but for zombies.
Yeah, aren't we doing the Decade of Horror?
That'll be our next one, yeah.
Okay.
Because that'll be in October. That'll give us a break between.
I'm fine with zombie stuff.
No, Return of the Living Dead's awesome. It's not Romero awesome, but well, I mean, I give that 5 stars as well as the trilogy, but God, just give me more movies with red.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, with Planet of the Apes, I'm curious what you'll think of the third one. It's one of my favorite sequels, but it could give you kind of a tonal whiplash because it's very different and the setup's absurd. But
that's actually the one I'm most excited for.
Okay, cool. Well, given how the second one ends, they didn't have a lot of options. So they did their best. But if you can get past the absurd setup, I think the third one's really great, and I don't want to spoil it.
I'm still in disbelief that they did that in the second movie.
Yeah, it's insane. Especially since the first half is just a lesser remake of the first one. Like, it's just your normal sequel, like, oh, we're just doing the first movie again. And then it goes insane.
Yeah, and I kind of wish the rest of the movie was like that. Like, the third act is the only good part of that movie.
Yeah, it's got some of the best stuff in the movie.
You maniacs! You blew it all up!
Now, this stuff I'm a little conflicted on, and granted, we're talking over it, so I'm not fully paying attention. Maybe on another watch, so I'll have a better grasp of it. I'm a little vague on what actually happened with her father and with her mother. Because first she says, like, well, I didn't want what happened to me to happen to my younger sister, but also I'm the victim. Like, it's not my responsibility. And now we have this scene where it's like you can tell she wants to tell her mom what's going on, but she can't bring herself to. Yeah, her hair's big, but her hair isn't as aggressively 80s as it was in the earlier scene.
She looks different just in general in this movie.
Oh, yeah. But she's gonna give her mom this look of, like, I'm not okay. Like, there's something going on, but she still can't fully bring herself to. And then on the mom's part, like, is this just negligence? Like, is she just not
Well, and I
seeing or
like all I really have to go on is movies, especially movies from the time. But I feel like the trope is you're close to one parent, and that's the
Mhm,
parent that like pays attention to you. The other
mhm.
parent, like they want to be there, but there's that gap that can't quite, be crossed.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, on another viewing, I might have a better grasp on this. Just one of my nitpicks or things I'm torn on is when this movie's over, I'm wanting a little bit more closure just with what happened to her parents because I don't really know.
Mhm.
And like what happens in the fallout in the aftermath.
They blew it all up.
Yep. But I knew this was coming. I knew when we got out of these cuffs, it's probably gonna be very bloody and very violent, and oh god, it's effective. It's not fun. But it is clever. It's just using what's in the room, something that's been there the whole time. But would I be willing to go there? Probably not. But as the old saying goes, the will to live is a motherfucker.
That's just true. Really funny looking at like people that I follow on Letterboxd that have reviewed this. Like 3.5, 4, 5, half star.
Sir.
You can tell the person that couldn't get past the heavy themes.
Well, that we never said this movie was for everybody.
Which, yeah, like let me just say that it's fine. It's just funny.
Well, yeah, and if you want jump scares, this isn't it.
I'm gonna send you this list on Letterboxd that I found. It's every horror movie that you should watch at least once. Not because it's a movie list that you need to see, because like some of them are obvious, but the way they organize the movies is like by color of the poster, and it's really satisfying.
Oh, nice. We like films by color here.
We do. You should check out their channel.
Yep, great channel. I'll look at that list later.
Yeah, no worries. It's just it was right in front of me.
Mm.
Oh,
But
have you ever seen that movie
that
Contracted?
I have not.
That's another hard one to watch. It kind of reinvents the idea of the zombie virus as a STD,
Mm.
and it's more of a zombie movie in the fact that it's about following our protagonist as she turns into a zombie.
Mm.
Very hard to watch, but very good.
That's a lot like Maggie, the
Mm-hmm.
Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, which is a drama. Like that's not a horror. It's all allegory, but very good. I like the movie a lot.
It's
And this,
way better than it has any right to be.
yeah, yeah, for sure. This scene just goes on a while. Not in a bad way. It's just so hard to watch. It's so
Yeah,
disturbing.
if this is the scene I think it is, it's like right about here where I started cringing.
Yep. This is cringe. Oh god. Like
Like in a
this
good way.
is like I said, there are a couple people I'd show this movie to who I think would like it, but I don't know when I'm gonna be in the mood to just watch this movie on my own again.
Yeah,
It-
because I mean, like this is also thematically
ah,
rich,
mhm.
but it's where something where Hill House makes you think and like makes you feel. This makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, because something like Silence of the Lambs has a lot of really heavy themes and disturbing stuff, but that's a really rewatchable movie for me. Maybe it's just because most of that stuff's off screen, but like I could watch that movie any day. Like I love it, but there's really heavy, serious stuff in that movie. God, I'm looking away. This is the stuff.
Oh God.
Skin peeling back. I'm like, no, stop. I hate it. I don't like it. Oh, when do you go into shock?
Probably very quickly.
When does your body just say nope?
I am probably gonna have to watch this one more time because I'm gonna make my friend watch this and he's gonna hate me. I made him watch Reanimator last week.
Yes.
He's not a gore guy. He ended up liking it, but
That's good.
he can be super squeamish.
There's some squeamish stuff in that movie, but a lot of the gore is really over the top and very silly.
Mhm.
Like, it doesn't gross me out like other movies do. But I'm surprised they never bring up the analogy in this movie of a dog, just given how much a dog's in this movie, of a dog gnawing off its own leg to get out of a trap, or an animal biting to get out of a trap, because that's basically what happens with our protagonist. But she's got some of a hand left. It's like, there's like three things that make me wince. Like fingernail stuff, like pulling back fingernails, or skin in general.
Yeah, I'm not normally a wincer. Like I can watch, something. I can watch something like Hellraiser, or for a more recent example, I watched the original The Martyrs, and that is also, I don't know if you've seen that. That is a fucked up movie.
Yep.
Didn't flinch. That scene right there makes me flinch.
Ugh. A lot of people have that with eye stuff, like needles going in eyes, which does make you uncomfortable, but it doesn't make me wince as hard as.
Have you seen
fingernail stuff?
Any of the Final Destination movies?
I've seen the first 3. I need to get back to it.
I forget which movie it is, so you may have seen it, but there's one of them that is a laser eye surgery setup, and that one.
I think that's 5. Maybe it was 3. I don't remember.
I don't know, but just the idea of like eye surgery.
Oh yeah.
Girl called the cops.
Yeah. Well, the phone was dead. So.
Do they not have a landline?
A lot of houses don't anymore.
You are not gonna make it out of this house driving. That's true. Oh God. Even the dog is creepy, just like he's waiting. Mm-hmm. He knows. Wait, did she go back upstairs?
No, she's still with her. Like, she just passed out immediately. This has all been in the same room.
Oh, I thought she went downstairs. I really should have watched this afternoon. Fine.
Well, she's going to attempt driving.
Girl, grab something big. Oh, he's not growling at you.
Yeah. Well, this is where, again, you're trying to figure out where the movie's going. Because it's safe to assume this guy she's been seeing is just a hallucination. But the dog's seeing him too. So I was like, okay, we better answer this. And we do. But like,
there's just something creepy about that long hallway shot.
Yeah. I think I've discovered that Mike Flannagan has a severe fear of tall guys.
And bent neck ladies.
Bent neck ladies, but especially tall guys.
I shouldn't have made that joke. Now I'm sad.
Yeah.
That episode, man.
Good episode.
And now for a feature presentation of Children of the Corn.
So she just gave her wedding ring to this guy, which is very nice. Good luck trying. Yeah, this is just one of those inherent fears of just like being in the middle of nowhere. Not for me. I've seen too many scary movies. Handcuffs, not my thing. Not trying it.
I wouldn't mind living out in the middle of nowhere if I could get like really good Wi-Fi, but I would take like precautions, like nothing that could potentially trap me in a room. No, no visitors.
Oh yeah. Like The Descent, that's a good movie and very claustrophobic. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't do this for fun. That's not my idea of fun.
Some of the shit people
Yeah.
do for fun, it's like, are you trying to die?
This is what we got video games for. Stay at home.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I'm a sucker for stories like this. You know, it's a crucible. It's just this horrifying, very painful, brutal event this character has to go through to come
Oh
out
God.
the other side. Like, yep, there he is. You know, it's a film about transformation. Ugh.
It's a different kind of movie,
Wasted.
but for a movie about people trapped in one place, I think you really end up liking Saw 2.
Oh, nice.
That's a movie that's very much in one place, and then like there's a bunch of traps in that one place.
Yeah. Well, and it's not a horror movie, but this reminded me of something like Gravity, where
Never
that
seen
whole
it.
movie's. Oh yeah, that's the astronaut movie where it's just Sandra Bullock just trying to
No, I
survive
do
in
remember. I
space.
do remember it because I think that's the movie where everybody was like, "Oh, it's a Venom prequel."
No, that's Life.
Oh,
With
okay.
I think Ryan Reynolds is in it. I never saw Life, but yeah, that is an alien. Gravity is just about like these astronauts, and then something goes
I
wrong,
do remember that. No, the
and
trailer, like, because I don't like
it's intense.
heights. The trailer made nope, not watching that.
Nope, it's very intense. But like I
Jesus,
said,
she
this
looks
reminded me
like
of that.
like
Oh
she's
gosh,
gotten the
that's so
shit beat out of her.
rough. Don't get out of the car. Just honk the horn. Thank God for Good Samaritans.
Okay, so I'm still waiting for this movie to go off the rails like everybody says it does.
I don't think it goes off the rails at all. I just have mixed feelings on the execution. But like I said, I don't know what I'd change.
Well, I just saw a bunch of reviews saying it was like the last 10 minutes were terrible.
I wouldn't go that far. It answers questions the movie set up. Yeah, if I'm gonna be nitpicky with the monologue, I think the issue is the scene that turns into more of an exposition dump, where I feel like you could trim this down. Because first, it's her writing a letter to her younger self, just as a very cathartic, a coping emotional thing. But then it's gonna lead into explaining stuff, and it goes on a while. Yeah, because I mean, she's still haunted by this experience. She's still seeing this guy.
Yeah. God, that's creepy.
Mm. And but this feels very Stephen King. This revelation of, we're assuming that was a hallucination, but we saw her give her wedding ring to that guy, and her wedding ring was never found.
Mhm.
So you're like, oh,
Find a little bit of a
What's going
supernatural
on?
edge to it.
Well, but they explain, they do explain what was actually going on there. But this stuff works for me, of her reconciling with her younger self and her past. And I think this is great that the insurance money she got from her husband's death, like she's using it to help young people out who have had, you know, similar trauma. It's about trauma, folks.
It is. Mike Flannagan,
And,
who hurt you.
and this is where I have a question, where now she's being open and is sharing her experiences with these people of what happened between her and her dad. And then I have that question of like, okay, is this, are her parents alive? Like, does this get out? Like, what? That's a legitimate question I have. That like that I feel like I don't fully get enough closure for. Like, is her dad arrested? Is he dead? Like,
Old enough that I would believe her parents are dead.
they could be. I just wish that was more explicit. It's the one thing where I'm lacking a bit of
Boy,
closure. But now we have to shift gears into who the heck that guy was, and now it becomes kind of an exposition dump. And I don't know if there was a way you could have set this up better in the first half or trimmed this. Like, again, I have mixed feelings on it, but I don't know what I'd change.
I'm fine with it. I've seen plenty of movies to end this way.
Yeah, but now we are getting the explanation of that. Yes, the guy in the house was real, and it's really creepy. Like, it's such a Stephen King character villain though, because the backstory they give this guy is so messed up, and he's so scary.
Spooky.
Like, yeah, he just collected body parts, you know. But then they specify he was only interested in male victims, so which is why he let her live or didn't care about her, which is lucky. It's just, it makes you wonder, like, what would have happened if the whole handcuff thing didn't happen. Like, this is a completely different movie. If that situation, it's like two different stories just collided, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just, if the whole handcuff situation didn't happen, this is a very different but potentially equally tragic and dark story.
I will say I can definitely see why this is kind of like downgrades the movie for some people. It doesn't ruin it for me, but I definitely like if we were reviewing this, would have went at 4, and this definitely took it down to like a 3.5. Not a huge measure by any means, but
I'd probably give this at least a 4 out of 5. It's not a 5 out of 5 movie, and like I said, I don't dislike this ending. It just goes on a while.
yeah.
Like,
But
okay,
I mean,
I get
I
it.
think about like the other stuff that we've reviewed by Mike Flannagan. I would say Oculus is better than this. Um, and Doctor Sleep is better than this, and I give those 4 or 4.5.
Maybe.
So
Hmm.
3.5, like a light 3.5, strong, or excuse me, strong 3.5, maybe a light 4.
Yeah, it's just tough for me because something like Oculus is really tight, and it's really well
Wait a minute,
constructed.
they mentioned they just mentioned somebody being arraigned, so I assume maybe it's her dad.
No, they're still talking about the serial killer guy because he was arrested.
Oh, okay.
So 6 months after the whole incident with being handcuffed and her husband dying, this guy is arrested, and she reads about it in the paper and puts the pieces together. Like, oh, this guy was real, and he was in our house, and all that really happened. And this scene's a little, but I get what it's going for. It's catharsis for this character. And like I said, I don't know if any of this is in the book, but I think it's
Couldn't
interesting.
tell you. M-O-N, that spells moon.
But I get what this scene's going for, though. Like she sees.
No, I don't know if you know about that, but that's the stand thing.
Hmm.
There's a character who's not all there, and he'll
Hmm.
constantly get M-O-O-N. That spells whatever he's talking about. In fact, in the miniseries that I want us to do a commentary on, he is played by the Patrick voice actor.
Oh, cool.
So just
It's
imagine
great.
Patrick going M-O-O-N. That spells moon.
Yeah. But like I said, in this guy, she sees her dad, she sees her husband, and these men that have had this horrible effect on her life, and now she's past it. Like I don't like it works enough. I just have mixed feelings on the execution.
You probably could have cut out some of that monologue and just cut to this.
Mm-hmm. And I don't mind the final shot with the sun dead center.
No, this is a great final shot. The darkness is gone.
Yep, exactly. And like what I was saying with Oculus is that's a really tight film and it's really well constructed. But this, I don't think there's any as solid as the character writing is in Oculus. I think Carla Gugino's character in this is a more fleshed out, interesting character than the characters in that movie, at least in my opinion. Because this is more of a character study. It's kind of a one woman show for a lot of it. So they're very different movies that it's hard for me to compare. But I probably like Oculus more than this. Like I'm not gonna argue about that. But
I
I like
would
both.
if you asked me to pick a Flanagan movie, I just my basis is this is probably the last one I would pick.
Yeah,
Even though it's great.
Like, yeah, I think it's very good, but it's also not a super rewatchable movie.
Yeah, whereas I think Oculus is very rewatchable.
Music by the Newton Brothers, who also did Hill House and other Flanagan projects.
There's a little bit of Hill House in this score right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I like how they do the end credits with the keeping the eclipse theme going.
Yeah.
I also wanted to Google that. Like, was there a specific eclipse in the 80s? Like, is there a specific date we can look at?
Robert
Like,
really wants it to be a real eclipse.
I want it to. I want to believe.
Well, Robert, that was Gerald's game. Are you happy you've seen it twice now?
I have now seen it twice, which is probably enough. But I thought it was
we
great.
Still got a review to do on it eventually.
Yeah. We probably wouldn't do a whole review just on this movie, but we might do a Flanagan like ranking at some point.
That would be a bad way to close out our Flanagan month. Just
or if we ever get through like all of his projects, like all of his movies, all of his shows, and then come back to rank everything. That could be cool.
Even if we don't even if we don't get to all of them, if you guys watch them like in your off time.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna do a commentary on all of Hill House, right?
Yeah. I'm down. But the story of this movie also reminds me of Hush, though, where you're just focused on like this single protagonist and this horrible, painful experience they go through to survive.
Ooh,
but I also like how they do the eclipse imagery, like here with the credits scrolling up. Looks really nice. Good job.
Yeah.
Good movie.
Good job, Flanagan. Make another movie, you bastard. All right. Well, that was Gerald's game, which I can never spell when trying to type out a commentary. I don't know why Gerald is so fucking hard to spell.
It's a weird name.
Well, Robert, any final thoughts before we call it a night?
No, I think I've covered everything. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I watched it. I'll try to read. If you ever read the book, let me know.
I will.
How it comes at pairs for you.
In fact, let's see. It's on Amazon. I can't stop yawning.
And check out Dolores Claiborne at some point. That's a very good movie.
Yeah. See, I spelled it wrong again. It is not on one of their services, but it is for sale, or it is on digital. And it's not even 500 pages. That's surprising.
Do you own many King books physically, or do you just read everything?
I used to, but I had to get rid of a lot of that when I moved. So all of my books now are digital.
Gotcha.
Well, except for I've got a couple of like X-Men Omnis.
Ooh, nice.
But I had to pick: do I collect books or movies? And I chose movies. If you can't tell,
Not a bad choice.
no, not at all. Well, everyone, that was Gerald's game. I will try to do some Resident Evil this weekend. I have a longer weekend, so we're going to try to finish up Resident Evil 4. And then I think I'm going to jump into Resident Evil Village because I got the DLC and I want to play it. And then Robert and I will hopefully be back this Thursday with Last of Us if he's not a busy fucker again.
I'll try. And on our other channel, Gotham City Bulletin or Batman channel, on Sunday, you still have to finish the Batman Begins game, right?
We are doing Batman Begins, and then this coming Friday we will be doing Nightwing Volume 1.
And then, yeah, be sure to send me a list of like the specific issues I need to read for that.
Oh yeah, I forgot you're a bastard that has it in.
There are so many Nightwing. I think there are so many Nightwing miniseries.
This isn't a mini-series.
Or ongoings or whatever. There's been a lot.
Chuck Dixon.
But okay.
Well, anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you all, and we will be back. We will be back in 2 weeks from today with a review of Midnight Mass. That one might be longer than our Hill House video, so stay tuned, folks.
Boy. Strap in.